This episode of Film Riot is brought to you by FreshBooks Online Invoicing and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, now with single and multiplayer, in stores now. Today on Film Riot, we compare the Canon 5D Mark II to the Canon T2i. What?
Oddly, I'm not weirded out by this.
What?
Oh! What are you doing? Staring contest. Winner gets to beat the other one till they pass out. Okay, I pass. What?
Logo. Welcome to Film Riot, the show that takes the mystery out of the effects and techniques going to some of your favorite Hollywood films. I'm your host, Ryan Connolly. Now, as you probably know, we decide week to week what the show will be based on depending on our interactions with you, be it email, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. And lately, a question I've been asked again and again is how the Canon T2i stacks up against the camera I currently use, which is the Canon 5D Mark II. So I figured I'd get my hands on a T2i and see how it stacks up against my 5D, which is priced $1,800 more expensive. Should be fun. So the first things that came to mind when I was thinking about testing these two cameras against each other were low light, rolling shutter, dynamic range, and just the difference in image quality between the two. So first, let's start with the horrible monster, which is rolling shutter. The first one is from the 5D, which is pretty freaking bad when it comes to the rolling shutter issue. I came across this problem pretty heavily when we shot the war sketch. I'm a huge fan of handheld and fast camera movements to help enhance action, but the 5D makes it a very difficult task with its gross skewing of the image. And here's the T2i. As you can see, it's a little bit better, but still heavily suffers from the rolling shutter disease. Next, I wanted to test out the low light capabilities of these cameras. Now, this test wasn't set up to see which camera could record in the least amount of light. It was set up to see how far I could push each camera and still have an acceptable image. So I shot at night and only used one chandelier, which was above Josh. Then I set both cameras to 1600 ISO, used the same lens on both cameras, and set both of them to the same shutter and iris settings. First is the T2i, which you can see that there's some noise in the background and over Josh's face. I jumped right to 1600 because this is where the T2i's image starts to get ugly. Now let's flip over to the 5D. Not surprisingly, the 5D handles the ISO much better. We have a much cleaner image that is way more acceptable for use. Now once we color correct both images, we see even further that the T2i did not give us much to work with. As we push up in the ISO range, we have more contrast in the camera and less room to move in color correction. But with the 5D, we have a perfectly usable image with plenty of room for proper color correction. The T2i's image was still usable, but just barely, and made it really hard for me to color correct in the end, whereas the 5D was the complete opposite. But still, for the price tag, the T2i is really impressing me. But now it's time to move on to the next setup, which is shutting off all the lights and using just Josh's cell phone for the key. And we kept all the same settings in camera. First is the T2i, and then the 5D. I was very impressed here with the T2i, but just using Josh's cell phone as a key, I was able to get a completely usable and very cool image. Again, not surprisingly, the 5D outperformed the T2i, but less so in this test. Finally, we placed the cell phone on the table and jacked the ISO up to 6400. Then I set the iris to 1.4 on both cameras. What resulted was something completely unusable from the T2i and an impressively usable image from the 5D. Of course, this isn't a surprise since one of the big selling points for the 5D is its low light capabilities, and the T2i is a much cheaper camera. Even still, I was really impressed by the capabilities of this camera. The T2i far outperforms another camera like the HV40. Master the possibilities and conquer Rome as Ezio, the legendary master assassin. Experience over 15 hours of single-player gameplay set in the living, breathing, unpredictable city of Rome. Lead and control legendary brotherhood. Recruit and train promising young assassins. deploy them across Europe, or call upon them to aid you in your quest. And then there's multiplayer. Choose from multiple authentic character classes, each with their own signature weapon and killing moves, with richly detailed maps and a wide variety of unique multiplayer modes. You'll never fight the same way twice. After playing this fantastically addictive game in single player and online multiplayer, both of which just as fun as the other, I started to think to myself, does playing Assassin's Creed actually make me a better assassin in real life? So I put it to the test. So I decided to find out if playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood would actually make you a better assassin in real life. So to do that, I had to do 2 steps. Step 1, I actually had to play the game. And step 2, I needed a weapon, which is this right here. A pole with a dog shock collar taped to one end and the remote for said shocker on the other. Basically, you put this on a dog, and when they're running away, you push the button and it shocks the dog so they'll come back. It also has 10 settings, so you can guess which setting I actually put it on. Anyway, now it's time to stalk Josh. So the results from my very scientific experiment would conclude that, in fact, playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood does make you a better assassin. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is available now. Logo. So we're back attack. Next, I wanted to take a look at the dynamic range of these 2 cameras. So I did. Take a look at these 2 images. First is the T2i, and then the 5D. And you can see there that the 5D has more information across the board than the T2i. If you look on the right side of Stark's face, you can see that the 5D has retained more detail there, and the T2i is much darker in the shadow areas. So this image gives us less room to color correct than the 5D. Now I know this is a very basic test, but I'm way less interested in numbers here and more about the overall image quality you can pull. So with that in mind, let's move to the image quality test. Shake your booty, player.
Hands up and touch the sky. Yo, we gon' fly tonight.
Shaking it cause you breaking it. I set up 3 scenes for this. First is Josh sitting at a table. I lit the front of his face with a fluorescent just to the right behind Stark's body, and a 1K to the back left, then bounced a 1K off the ceiling for some fill. Again, you can see that the T2i has more contrast and is more saturated than the 5D, even though both cameras are set to a flat profile. I also feel like the 5D gets a more cinematic look up front than the T2i. But now let's color correct these bad boys. Here's the T2i after color correction, and here's the 5D. Now I first try to match their color, then apply the same color correction to both clips, and then tweak as necessary to pull the best image I can out of each camera. And here they are side by side. I thought the 5D was easier to color correct and a bit more filmic, but looking at them side by side, the T2i really starts to impress me. For a camera a third the price, the T2i can really hold up. Here's another setup. The lighting here is very similar, except I used a softbox as Stark's key. The T2i continues to impress with these shots. Once I looked at them side by side, I was convinced that in a controlled setting, you could easily cut the T2i in with 5D footage without most people seeing a difference. And finally, I shot outside in the sunlight with just one reflector. First the T2i, then the 5D. Personally, I see a big difference between these two, but again, with a little grading, you could easily cut these 2 images together. Now, of course, the 5D is the better camera. I'm not trying to dispute that in any way. That's not the point. The point is to show how a low-cost camera like the T2i can stack up against a high-cost camera like the 5D when handled properly. So if you're in the market for a camera and you're on a low budget, I would highly suggest the T2i or the new Canon 60D. They both have basically the same video quality, but the 60D has that swivel LCD, which can be really helpful. Bottom line is, with the new low-cost cameras like the T2i, the 60D, and the 5D, it's a really exciting time for low-budget filmmakers. Getting that elusive film look is getting easier and cheaper with each passing year, and all the excuses for not getting out there and doing it is starting to sound increasingly more lazy. I know a lot of you are starting your own business or doing freelance, which is why I'm really excited about our new sponsor, FreshBooks. Because when you're doing freelance or starting your own business, you're gonna have to do invoices, which is not something us creatives really like to do. The good news is that FreshBooks takes all the annoyance out of the process and considerably cuts down the time it takes to get this corporate portion done and get you paid with their online invoicing service. I've been using it and I can honestly say that I love it. In fact, I've happily thrown out my old invoicing software. And another great thing about FreshBooks is how professional it makes you look, from its presentation to the function of using PayPal to accept payments online. For us small business owners, appearance is everything. Now, the best thing about FreshBooks is getting started is completely free. So go to freshbooks.com and sign up for a free account. And here's the delicious part that they're doing for our Film Riot viewers. They're giving a birthday cake away every day to someone who signs up for a new account from our show. All you have to do for a chance to get a birthday cake sent to you is sign up for a new account and enter Film Riot in the How Did You Hear About Us section while signing up. Because who doesn't like some B-Day cake? And with FreshBooks, any day could be your birthday. And that's it. But before I do my typical hey, see you later, I want to talk about something that's pretty important to us. As you probably know, clean water is one of the most scarcest resources in the world. We need it to survive, but there's billions of people who don't have access to it. We wanted to get involved, so we partnered with Charity Water to try to make a difference. Now, Charity Water is an organization that donates 100% of the money it raises to building wells and bringing clean water to communities that need it. And since the Film Riot community is one of the coolest group on the internet, I decided I'd ask you to get involved too. Each show on Revision 3 is reaching out to their viewers to raise money. It costs about $5,000 to build a well that will supply clean water to an entire village. So we need your help. Go to revision3.com/charitywater to get involved. So until next time, you can catch me on the Twitterverse. You can also crack open our Facebooks like a champ. And I'll see you on Thursday when we limp like a pimp and don't skimp on the... What? I knew it was gonna happen sooner or later. Oh, buddy. Look, you're like...